there's only one blood, cause it ain't no sense in us trampling on the stones. It's us, down to the bone. Blood is thick, waters were known well, cousins were kept apart, mothers were often memories. Fathers were not favorites on the farm, for he could do some harm, he could wreck the master scheme, for he, brothers, could dream. Your mama ain't no saint, your daddy died in a shallow stream, but your uncle Dr. King did have a dream, my brother. And what is your real excuse? Why can't you study your lessons and stay in school? Why can't you study your lessons and stay in school? Free love and sex ain't nothing but a game. Don't never last, try hope. Take a chance on love. Register to vote.
Welcome to the Qumran Report. May the peace and blessings of the life-giving creative spirit be upon you and upon your family. My name is Melvin Ishmael Johnson, coming at you live from Morris Media Studio. Our call-in number is 1-323-293-3375. Give us a call. Now, this week on the Qumran Report, we will talk about the history of black fraternities and sororities with playwright George Corbin, who's played The Daughters of the Kush. Opens at the Stella Adler Theater October the 13th, and it runs Friday and Saturday at 8 p.m. and Sunday at 3, and ends its run on Sunday, October the 13th, 2017. The Stella Adler Theater is located at 6773 Hollywood Boulevard, zip code 90028. Ticket information and reservations 1-213-908-5032. So we're here live at Morris Media Studio. Give us a call then. The playwright George Corbin will be here in a few minutes. We'll be giving away a few pairs of tickets to opening night of this great play, The Daughters of the Kush. I'd like to talk about our next broadcast will be on the 21st of September, Thursday, 11 to 12, right here at Morris Media Studio. And we would do our second part on black fraternities and sororities. And it will be called Black Fraternity, Black Greeks and the Impact on the Black Community. And this is on the 21st. We will be discussing this great book here called Stolen Legacy by George G.M. James. He did some extensive research, and this is a classic book that talks about the Greek fraternities, the Divine Nine, and their impact on the black community. We'll be doing that on the 21st. Today, we want to look at the whole history of this Divine Nine, what is known as the Divine Nine. And let me just list these fraternities and sororities. First one, Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity, which was founded in 1906 at Cornell University. And then Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority, founded in 1908 at Howard University. And then Kappa Alpha Psi Phi Fraternity, founded in 1911 at Indiana University. Omega Phi Psi Phi, founded in 1911 Howard University. Delta Sigma Theta Sorority, founded in 1913 at Howard University. Phi Beta Sigma, founded in 1914 at Howard University. Zeta Phi Beta, founded in 1920 at Howard University. Sigma Gamma Rho, founded in 1922 at Butler University. And then Iota Phi Theta Fraternity, founded in 1963 at Morgan State University. and these are known as the Divine Nine. It was at the turn of the century. Some of your outstanding African-American scholars and leaders, Dr. W.B. Du Bois, Dr. King, etc., was involved in these black fraternities. Now, while we wait on our guests, let me give you a little background on some of these fraternities and sororities. I'd like to start off with one, and when we get our guests here, I would talk to them extensively about that. But one is Sigma Pi Phi, also known as the Boulets, reference as the Boulets, but this is one of your earlier black fraternities. It was founded by Henry M. Minton. And here in his home city of Philadelphia, Henry McGee Minton and a small group of his colleagues founded Sigma Pi Phi fraternity, the nation's first black letter fraternity. Minton, who was a dentist, he shared his vision of such a fraternity. He had been thinking about this for some time, with his colleague consisting of A.B. Jackson, who was a doctor, Edwin C.J. Howard, also a doctor, and Richard J. Warwick, Jr., who was a dentist. Now, meeting on Sunday, May the 15th, 1904, at the home of Dr. Howard, the group discussed and agreed on establishing a fraternity and its purpose as envisioned by Minton, along with the prerequisite of membership, educational and professional achievement, commitment to addressing needs in the black community, cultural compatibility, and the potential to engage in good fellowship. Additionally, membership would be by invitation only. And with these laid out and agreed upon, the group elected to meet again in 2 weeks from the May 15, 1904 date to discuss and approve fraternity rituals and its constitution. Now, during that interval, 2 other distinguished men was added to the initial group, Eugene T. Henson, M.D., and Robert Albee, M.D. Together, the foregoing 6 men, Henry M. Minton, A.B. Jackson, Edwin C.J.T. Howard, Richard Warwick, Eugene T. Henson, and Robert J. Albee are the founders of Sigma Phi Pi fraternity, whose purpose then it is now expressed in the words of the preamble to its constitution. And it reads, "Whereas it seemed wise and good that men of ambition, refinement, and self-respect should seek the society of one another, both for the mutual benefit and to be an example of higher type of manhood." So I want to project a picture of Dr. Minton so you get an idea of how you look. Very important in terms of the history. Mm-hmm. And in the bottom part of their constitution reads, "Be it resolved that a society be organized for the purpose of binding men of like quality into a close, sacred, fraternal union, that they may know the best of one another, and that each in this life may to his field ability aid the other, and by concerted action bring about those things that seem best for all that cannot be accomplished by individual effort." Now, this fraternity, Sigma Phi Phi fraternity, is also known as the Boulets, which in ancient Greece was a council or chief. And we will really get into that next week when we begin to talk about George G. M. James' book called Stolen Legacy, when he get into the historical aspect of the whole Greek civilization, which he proved in his book that was based mainly on the thought of the ancient Egyptians, and he detailed it in that book. And that's what we're going to talk about next week, is the impact of these Greek fraternities and sororities upon the overall black community here in the United States of America and on an international basis. One of the individuals who would come out of, I think he was Alpha, his name was Carter G. Woodson. And in the 20s, he would write an excellent book called The Miseducation of the Negro, in which he bring up that issue that we're still debating today, and that's the influence of Western education on the overall impact of the African-American mind here in the United States of America, especially coming out of almost 400 years of slavery. Now, another individual that I want to get into before we talk about the history of these Divine Nine, because this is an individual, he was an educator, he's also very important to the history in terms of Greek fraternities and sororities, and also the Prince Hall Mason movement. And his name was Charles H. Wesley. And like to project an image of Dr. Wesley, too, because he was a very, very important individual. I'm going to read a little about Dr. Wesley. His name was Charles Harris Wesley. He was born December the 2nd, 1891, and he passed August the 16th, 1987. So he lived a long time. He was an American historian, educator, minister, and author. He published more than 15 books on African American history, and he served as president of Wilberforce University and also founding president of Central State University, both in Ohio. He was noted for writing the history of the black fraternities and sororities and the Prince Hall movement here in the United States of America. Now, Charles Wesley was born in Louisville, Kentucky, the only child of Matilda and Charles Snowden Wesley. He attended local schools as a boy and went on to graduate in 1911 from Fisk University, a historical black college in Nashville, Tennessee. He earned a master's degree from Yale University in 1913. Continuing with his graduate work in 1925, Wesley became the fourth African American to receive a PhD from Harvard University. He was awarded a Doctor of Divinity in 1928 by Wilberforce University. Now, Wesley became an ordained minister of the African Methodist Episcopalian Church, the AME. He also had an academic career as a professor of history and wrote a total of more than 15 books on African American history and political science. He served as the dean of the liberal arts and the graduate school at Howard University. And he is considered the noted historian in terms of writing about the black fraternities and sororities. Okay, now let me get into a little about the history of the Divine Nine. the Divine Nine, and I listed them earlier. And the first one that I want to talk about is the Alpha Phi Alpha. Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated. It's the first African American intercollegiate Greek letter fraternity. The individuals recognized by the fraternities as founders are known as the Seven Jewels, who were Henry Arthur Callis, Charles Henry Chapman, Eugene Nichol Jones, George Kelly, Nathaniel Murray, Robert Augley, and Verner Woodson Tandy. Now, it was initially a literary and social study club organized in 1905 to 1906 school year at Cornell University in Ithaca, New York. The group later evolved into a fraternity with a founding date of December the 4th, 1906 at Cornell. It employs an icon from ancient Egypt, the Great Sphinx of Giza, as its symbol. Its aims are manly deeds, scholarship, and love for all mankind. And its motto is, first of all, servant of all, we shall transcend all. Its archives are preserved at the Moreland Springer Research Center in New York. The chapters were chartered at Howard University and Virginia Union University in 1907. As I mentioned earlier, some of the most prestigious individuals come from this particular fraternity. Martin Luther King Jr., W.E.B. Du Bois, Frederick Douglass, Dick Gregory, musician Duke Ellington, Lionel Richie, NBA legend Walt Frazier, Cornel West, the Jamaican Prime Minister Norman Manley was also a member of this fraternity. Olympic gold medal Jesse Owens, Supreme Court Justice Thurgood Marshall, United Nations Ambassador Andrew Young, Academy Award-winning director Barry Jenkins, and the late Stuart Scott, sports announcer, and Jay Harris, just to mention a few individuals that was involved with this particular fraternity. And when our guests come, George Corman, he's also a member, I will talk to him in depth about that particular fraternity. Okay, the next of the Divine Nine is the Alpha Kappa Alpha. It's a Greek letter sorority, the first established by African American college women. Membership is for college-educated women. The sorority was founded on January the 15th, 1908, at the historical Black Howard University in Washington, D.C., by a group of 16 students led by Etta Hedgeman Lyles. Forming a sorority broke barriers for African American women in areas where they had little power of authority. Due to a lack of opportunities for minorities and women in the early 20th century, Alpha Kappa Alpha was incorporated on January 29, 1913. Consisting of college-educated women of many diverse backgrounds from around the world, including African American, Caucasian, Asian, Native American, Hispanic, Indian descent, the sorority serves to a membership of more than 283,000 women, and this was in 992 chapters in the United States. Okay, that's the second one. The third of the Divine Nine is Kappa Alpha Psi. It is a collegiate Greek letter fraternity with a predominantly African American membership. Since the fraternity's founding on January the 5th, 1911 at Indiana University, Bloomington, the fraternity has never limited membership based on color, creed, or national origin. The fraternity have over 150,000 members with 721 undergraduate and alumni chapters in every state of the United States and international chapters in the United Kingdom, Germany, Korea, Japan, United States, Virgin Islands, Nigeria, and South Africa. Okay, that is campus. Now, let's look at the fourth member of the group, Omega Psi Phi. It's an international fraternity with over 50 undergraduate and graduate chapters. The fraternity was founded on November the 17th, 1911 by 3 Howard University juniors, Edward Amos Love, Oscar James Cooper, and Frank Coleman, and their faculty advisor, Dr. Ernest Everett Jess. Omega Phi is the first predominantly African-American fraternity to be founded at a historical black university. And then some of the known individuals that belongs to this particular fraternity: Bill Cosby, Benjamin Mays, Baird Rustin, Langston Hughes, Count Basie, Roy Wilkins, Benjamin Hooks, Vernon Jordan, Reverend Jesse Jackson, Reverend Dr. Matt King Carter, Douglas Weiner, Earl Graves, Tom Joyner, Charles Bolton, Michael Jordan, Shaquille O'Neal, Vince Carter, Steve Harvey, Stephen Smith, Ray Lewis. This is the Omega Phi Phi. The next one is the Delta Sigma Theta, sometime abbreviated Deltas or DST, is a not-for-profit Greek letter sorority of college-educated women dedicated to public service with an emphasis on programs that target the African-American community. Delta Sigma Theta was founded on January the 13th, 1913 by 22 collegiate women at Howard University in Washington, D.C. It's open to any women who meet the requirements regardless of religion, race, or nationality. Women may join to undergraduate chapter at a college or university or through an alumni chapter after earning a college degree. This was the Deltas. The next of the Divine Nine is the Phi Beta Sigma. Phi Beta Sigma is a social service, collegiate, and professional fraternity founded at Howard University in Washington, D.C. on January the 9th, 1914 by 3 young African-American male students with 9 other Howard students as chartered members. The fraternity founders, A. Langston Taylor, Leonard F. Morse, and Charles I. Brown, wanted to organize Greek fraternities that would exemplify the ideas of brotherhood, scholarship, and service while taking an exclusive perspective to serve the community as opposed to having an exclusive purpose. Phi Beta Sigma. The next of the Divine Nine that we mentioned is Zeta Phi Beta. Zeta Phi Beta is an internationally historically black Greek letter sorority. In 1925, women from Howard University envisioned a sorority that would raise the consciousness of their people, encourage the highest standard of scholarship achievement, and foster a greater sense of unity among its members. These women believed that the sorority elitism, and socializing overshadow the real mission for progressive organization. Since its founder, Zeta Phi Beta has historically focused on addressing social issues. The next of the Divine Nine is the Sigma Gamma Rho. Sigma Gamma Rho Sorority Incorporated was founded on November the 12th, 1922 at Butler University in Indianapolis, Indiana by 7 young educators. It was incorporated within the state of Indiana in December 1922 and became a national collegiate sorority on December 30, 1929, when a charter was granted to the Alpha chapters. And this is Iota Phi Theta. Incorporated is a nationally incorporated historical African American collegiate fraternities whose purpose is the development of scholarship, leadership, citizenship, fidelity, and brotherhood among men. It was founded on September the 19th, 1963 at Morgan State University in Baltimore, Maryland. At present, it consists of over 70,000 members. There are currently over 300 undergraduate and alumni chapters, as well as colonies located in 40 U.S. states, the District of Columbia, the Bahamas, Columbia, South Korea, and Japan. So those are your Divine Nine. These are the sororities and fraternities that make up the bulk of the African American leadership since slavery. I was hoping to get some call-ins about the thing that stands out in my mind when I'm looking at these Divine Nine. It seemed like 5 of them were started at Howard University. So the question always pops in my mind is why, since we have 114 historical black schools, you would think that most of these fraternities and sororities would be situated in the southern state at this particular time. So one of the questions that I wanted to ask my guests is why was these fraternities and sororities founded, most of them founded in the Washington, D.C., Baltimore area of Howard University. Okay. Another thing that stood out in my mind is the fact that when we look at the ones that were started in 1904, the Sigma Phi fraternity, it's interesting to me that this was started by these 6 doctors that's founded, and I wonder about the significance behind that. But on the 21st, when we come back, we're going to really dabble into and try to answer some of the questions about that was brought by this particular book here, Stolen Legacy, by George G.M. James, who also was a member of the Alpha fraternity. He was a Prince Hall Mason, but he had a lot of regrets. He thought that the Greek letter fraternities had a gap in terms of the historical information, in terms of not connecting it to the ancient Egyptian. This is an excellent book. In this book, he talked about where this shift seemed to have developed during the time of Alexander the Great, and then under the tutelage of Aristotle, who was able to organize all of the knowledge that you had in the Greek, in the ancient Egyptian library that they transferred. It looked like we have a phone call coming in. So who am I speaking with?
Kurt.
I'm speaking with Kurt.
Yeah.
Kirk, how you doing?
I have a theory. I have a possible theory. I'm doing fine. You?
Oh, just fine.
I have a possible theory about Howard University.
Yes.
And if my memory serves me correctly, wasn't Howard?
Can you turn your phone? Turn it down.
Okay.
Turn it down in the background. Okay. Go ahead. Kurt. Look like we lost Kurt Maxey. Okay, Kurt, give us a call back in. So you was getting ready to talk about Howard University and the reason that most of these fraternities and sororities were started in that Washington, D.C. area. Okay, that was Kirk Massey. We're still waiting on our special guest, George Qumran, who had a play, The Daughters of the Kush, that's going up. The Daughters of the Kush is a world premiere play, excellent play, written by George Qumran, directed by Veronica Thompson, October the 13th to the 29th, a world premiere play, Friday, Saturday at 8 o'clock, and Sunday at 3 o'clock at the Stella Adler Theater, 6773 Hollywood Boulevard, Los Angeles, California, 90028. And, okay. So who am I speaking with?
It's Kurt Maxey again.
Yeah, we got turned off the last time.
Yeah, I'm sorry about the feedback.
You was telling me about Howard University, why you thought...
I got a theory. I don't know. My mother attended Howard. Wasn't Howard established by a colonel in the Union Army, or a white colonel, and I can't remember what year, but it seems to me that there were a lot of people of color worked as maids and butlers and so on and so forth, masons. They had good, well-paying jobs, and it would more so than African Americans in the South. And I think maybe with that economy, with the proximity, Washington D.C., they were more exposed to the white society, and they could see, okay, they're doing this, we can do it too. As maybe opposed to people on a farm or in a small community, not close to the city. You know what I'm saying? You're out in the country. You're in Mississippi. You're on a farm, and they saw these things in Washington, and they were able to, they made up their mind that they wanted to emulate it and do what, not imitate what they saw, but be equal to what they saw around in their environment in that city.
What was your mom? Was she in a sorority?
Yeah, she was Alpha Yeah, I don't know. She was with AKA. I don't know. Yeah.
Well, wouldn't you think that an institution like Tuskegee, on an educator like Booker T. Washington, would black fraternities and sororities would mushroom out of that area?
Well, I guess, from my understanding of Booker T. Washington, there was let's say, an intellectual disagreement maybe between Booker T. and Du Bois, and I think maybe Booker T. was more inclined to grow to grow the community in a different type of fashion. Be more self-sufficient. Due to the fact that they were in more of an agricultural environment society. That's the only thing I can guess.
Yeah, and Dr. Du Bois, he did teach 1 year at Tuskegee, and I know they had a disagreement later on, but Du Bois, he changed over a period of...
He made a lot of changes himself.
What do you think? Now, your father went to Morehouse.
Oh, yeah. I pulled up. Yeah, he went to Morehouse, and he went to a seminary school in Anniston, Alabama, that was run by the Lutheran Church, and he got a scholarship to Morehouse, and he was in the service for about 3 or 4 years, and then he went to Harvard, and he got his MBA at Harvard. And the thing that I find strange, and I wish George was there, he must be in the traffic or something, is my father didn't join a fraternity. And I think it was like it was. I mean, I think by when he went in the army and came and fought in the war for 3 or 4 years, he came back, and I get the impression that he felt that he wasn't going to be constrained by anything, anything the society, the American society had to offer. He always worked for himself, but needless to say, he probably wouldn't have been hired by a white company anyway. So. Well,
let me ask you this, Kirk. What do you think the values of black fraternities and sororities to the overall black community as a whole?
That's a good question. I would say it would depend. For me, I grew up in California, and to be honest, I wasn't exposed to the Greek life that much. But in certain, another thing that struck me, you were talking about the Deltas. Their membership is like triple, or it was extremely high compared to the fraternities. And the Deltas did do a lot of work in the community. I was browsing through some stuff this morning, and they worked. They did Hurricane Katrina relief and stuff like that. Maybe the fraternities were more involved with increasing the education, getting more black people in the colleges, and achieving academic acclaim, as opposed to.
Well, let me ask you about the Daughters of the Kush. You've been involved with that since the first reading. Right. What are your thoughts on the Daughters of the Kush? what kind of impact do you think that could have out here in Southern California?
What, the play?
Yeah, this play.
It's a duel. It's a one heck of a good melodrama, and it shows it shows that, hey, black folks did have sororities and were involved in sisterhood. And the thing that is fascinating about this play is you have a character that's Caucasian, and she's trying to get into the sorority, and those things did occur because when we had the reading last year, there was a discussion about a woman who was Jewish and she joined the Deltas, and I can't remember if it was in Florida or what state, and she was deeply rooted in civil rights.
Oh yeah, Tougaloo, Mississippi.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. And she wanted to join a black sorority, So I think it'll show the audience that I think things weren't as we're going through a period now where things seem to be more separate than they were in the past. There seems to be more of a push towards civil rights that was stronger back then. And particularly that the play takes place in 1963, and you had the death of two Jewish guys and a black man, Goodman, Cheney, and Schwerber, and I guess Mississippi, and the Freedom Riders and stuff like that. So I think I think the history value is going to have an impact on people and make them go back and reflect on their life and reflect on their parents' life and see what they had to go through to get where they were.
Well, Kirk, thank you so much for calling in. We got a couple of tickets for you for the opening night performance.
Oh, thank you. I need them. And I think our host might have got caught in the traffic, so I hope we hear from him. And I'll be listening to other broadcasts.
Mm-hmm. One more question before I let you go. Do you think fraternities and sororities isolate themselves from the overall African American community?
Yes.
Okay, in what way? What's the danger of that?
What's the what?
What is the danger of that? How can
that they're living in a bubble, and I grew up in Southern California, Los Angeles, in a time period, the early '60s, late '60s, and I went to a high school that was basically 80% Jewish. And they had off-campus social clubs, and it was just like being in a fraternity. We wore jackets. The clubs sought minorities to get in. And the men clubs sought guys to get into their clubs, but they were always the top athlete or the class president, so on and so forth. You see what I'm saying? I mean, they were the talented 10th. And I think that it was more of a social thing. And that's why they call themselves social clubs. And maybe some of these black fraternities fell into that trap the same way. It's like, okay, let's just let's socialize, as opposed to let's go out and walk, see if we can help some people on Main Street. It's, I think that has I think it depends on the size of the city. a lot, in the overall the racial composure of the city.
Mm-hmm. Okay, Kirk Maxey, playwright himself, Pity the Proud Ones, and the agreement about Truman and Robinson. Excellent. We're waiting on some more of your work to come through.
Well, it's coming through.
All right, Kirk, thank you very much for calling in, and I'll make sure those tickets for opening night.
Okay, thank you. Have a good day.
Right. Okay, we didn't get our in-studio guest. I guess he got caught up in the traffic. George Qumran, I talked to him a little earlier. But let me just mention again, The Daughters of the Kush, world premiere play by George Qumran, directed by Veronica Thompson. October the 13th through the 29th, Friday and Saturday at 8 o'clock, Sunday at 3 o'clock. That's at the Stella Adler Theater, 6773 Hollywood Boulevard, Hollywood, California, 90028. To RSVP or information about tickets, call 213-908-5032 or email dramastage1@yahoo.com. Okay, now we're heading down to the last part of our program, which is Community Voices in Events. And on September the 13th, 2017, at 7 o'clock, the Nasana Play Reading Series, produced by Bill White and myself at the Moments Playhouse. We have two excellent plays. That's this coming Wednesday. It's a free event, plenty refreshments, and it's an open discussion after. So come check that out. That's at the Nasana Play Reading Series at the Moments Playhouse. Now, also on September the 20th, 2017, 6:30 p.m., Financial Management Workshop for Veterans. And the workshop instructor will be E.J. Pierce. This is at the Vortex, 2341 East Olympic Boulevard, Los Angeles, California, 90021. I was hoping to get a call from EJ to tell us a little about the workshop. He have Mr. and Mrs. EJ Pierce, Akosha, and EJ, My Econ, and excellent financial advice. So we're looking forward to this workshop. That's once again 6:30 Financial Management Workshop for veterans, and non-veterans can attend also, but we're focusing in on veterans, and that's E.J. Pierce at the Vortex, 2341 East Olympic Boulevard, Los Angeles, California, 90021. And I also like to do a shout out to my brother, Reverend Freddie Johnson, who is starting his new church in Memphis, Tennessee. It's called the Zebedee's Baptist Church. And the doors will be opening on Sunday, September the 24th. And on our 21st, on our September the 21st broadcast, I will give you more information about the opening of his church. I hope to have him online so we can find out a few things that's happening down in Memphis, Tennessee. So I would like to extend a special thanks to Kirk Maxey, who called in on the phone. Kirk is an excellent playwright. He's part of the Roby Theater Advanced Playwriting Program. And so am I, so is George. Kirk just had an excellent play about Billie Holiday and Artie Shaw that was performed at the second Paul Robeson Festival last weekend at the Los Angeles Theater Center. Now, please listen to past shows of the Qumran Report by just Googling in the Qumran Report. And thank you for tuning in to the Qumran Report. And from your host, Melvin Ishmael Johnson, may the peace and blessings of the life-giving creative spirit be upon you and upon your family. I leave you with Homeboy by Sunji Ali.
There's only one blood, cause it ain't no sense in us traveling on the stones. It's us, down to the bone. Blood is thick, waters were known well, cousins were kept apart, mothers were often memories. Fathers were not favorites on the farm, for he could do some harm, he could rectify the scheme, for he, brothers could dream. Your mama ain't no saint, your daddy died in a shallow stream, but your uncle Dr. King did have a dream, my brother. And what is your real excuse? Why can't you study your lessons and stay in school? Why can't you study your lessons and stay in school? Free love and sex ain't nothing but a game. Don't never last, try hope. Take a chance on love, register to vote. Money ain't everything, but you could buy her a ring. Listen to little blackbird sing. Buy you a record of a yardbird with wings.